I was sitting across from a financial advisor, reviewing documents for what should have been a routine pension rollover, when she stopped mid-sentence and said, "Mr. Walsh, did you authorize a loan against your pension fund 6 months ago?" My blood went cold. Number absolutely not. She turned her computer screen toward me. There was my signature on loan documents, except it wasn't my signature. It was close, but not quite right. Someone had forged it. The loan amount, $87,000, nearly my entire pension fund. Money I'd saved for 32 years as a union electrician. The advisor looked uncomfortable. The co-signer listed is, it says here, David Brennan, your son-in-law. And that is when I knew. My daughter Emily's husband had stolen my retirement. And what I discovered when I started digging, what I learned about who he really was, it broke my heart, but it also saved my daughter's life. Let me tell you about the hardest conversation I've ever had to have. If you've ever had to tell someone you love a truth they didn't want to hear, you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button because this channel is about the painful moments that lead to healing. The conversations that hurt but save lives. Like this video, if you believe that protecting someone you love sometimes means risking their anger, and share in the comments about a time you had to speak a difficult truth. Let's remind each other that love sometimes looks like hard honesty. Now let me tell you what happened when I discovered who my son-in-law really was. My daughter Emily married David Brennan 4 years ago. I'll be honest, I had reservations from the start. Not anything concrete, just a feeling. The way he answered questions with vague non-answers, how he always had a story about why he couldn't work certain jobs or live in certain cities. The way Emily seemed smaller around him, quieter. But Emily was 32, a grown woman, and she loved him. So I kept my mouth shut, did the dad thing, shook his hand at the wedding, welcomed him to the family, tried to build a relationship. David was charming when he wanted to be, told great stories, always had an explanation for why things weren't quite working out. The job market, bad luck, people who had it out for him. He worked sporadically. Emily, a nurse, carried most of the financial load. He is going through a rough patch, she'd say. He just needs time to find the right opportunity. 6 months ago, David came to me with what he called a busyness opportunity. A friend needed investors for a renovation project, flipping houses, guaranteed return of 15% in 6 months. I wish I could help, I told him, but my money's all tied up in my pension. I am retiring in 2 years. I can't risk it. He nodded, seemed understanding. We had a beer. Talked about football. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. After discovering the forged loan, I went straight to the police. Filed a report for fraud and identity theft. They opened an investigation. That is when things got interesting. The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Maria Gonzalez. She ran David's name through the system and her expression changed. "Mr. Walsh, I need to ask you some questions about your son-in-law." Turns out, David Brennan wasn't even his real name. His birth name was David Brenner. He'd changed it legally 10 years ago. After serving 3 years in prison for financial fraud, he'd scammed elderly investors out of nearly $500,000 with fake investment schemes. After his release, he'd moved states, changed his name slightly, and started over. He'd been working variations of the same con ever since, small enough to stay under the radar, careful enough to avoid new charges. Has he had access to your daughter's finances? Detective Gonzalez asked. My stomach dropped. She is a nurse. She makes decent money. We need to talk to her. And Mr. Walsh, I have to tell you, men like this, they're often abusive. Not always physically, but emotionally, financially. I need you to be prepared for what we might find. I sat in my truck in the police station parking lot for an hour, phone in my hand, trying to figure out how to tell my daughter that her husband was a con man who'd stolen from me, and was probably stealing from her, too. Every scenario I played out ended badly. Emily getting angry, defending him, cutting me off. Emily being devastated, breaking down. Emily already knowing, being complicit. But I kept coming back to one thing. She was my daughter. And if there was even a chance she was in danger, financial, emotional, physical, I had to tell her. I called her. Em, I need to talk to you in person. It is important. Dad, I am working a double shift. Can it wait? No, honey, it really can't. Something in my voice must have scared her. Is it your health? Are you okay? I am fine. But we need to talk about David. Long pause. What about David? Not over the phone. Please, can you come to my house after your shift? Another pause. Okay, I'll be there at 11. Emily arrived at 11:15, still in her scrubs, exhausted from a double shift. She looked so much like her mother, same green eyes, same determined jaw. Her mother had died 6 years ago. Cancer. Emily had been through so much already. What is going on, Dad? She sat on the couch, worry all over her face. I'd practiced this 100 times. It still came out wrong. 6 months ago, David asked me about investing in a house flipping business. I said no, but he forged my signature and took a loan against my pension, $87,000. She went very still. What? I filed a police report. They investigated. Emily, David's real name is David Brenner. He changed it after serving 3 years for financial fraud. He is a con man. He has been doing this for years. I watched the color drain from her face. She didn't speak. The police want to talk to you about your finances. They think he might have access to your accounts too. Still nothing. Just staring. Honey, say something. When she finally spoke, her voice was tiny. I know. You know. Not about you. Not about your pension. But I know something's wrong. She started crying. My credit cards are maxed out. There is money missing from my savings. He said he was investing it, that it was going to pay off big. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. She looked at me with so much shame. Dad, I think I've lost everything. Over the next 3 hours, Emily told me everything. David had been slowly draining her finances for years. Cash advances on her credit cards. Access to her bank accounts. He'd even taken out a loan in her name, forged her signature, just like he'd forged mine. But worse than the financial abuse was everything else. The way he controlled where she went, who she talked to, how he'd gradually isolated her from friends. The constant criticism that made her feel like she was never good enough. The gaslighting, making her doubt her own memory and perception of events. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I just gave more, loved him better, he'd change, she whispered. I thought it was my fault. Emily, none of this is your fault. I am a nurse, Dad. I am smart. How did I let this happen? I took her hand. Because you loved him, because he is good at what he does. Manipulation is his job. Because abuse doesn't happen all at once. It is gradual, and because you are human. She sobbed deep. Horrible sobs that shook her whole body. I held my daughter while she grieved, not just for her marriage, but for who she'd become inside it. For the 4 years she'd lost. For the person she used to be before David made her small. Detective Gonzalez came to my house the next morning. Emily was there. Together we showed her everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, forged loan documents, emails, text messages. This is enough for multiple felony charges, Gonzalez said. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery. He is looking at serious prison time. What about my money? Emily asked. Can I get it back? Some of it. Maybe through restitution. But Emily, I am not going to lie to you. Most of it is probably gone. These guys spend it fast. Emily nodded. She'd already assumed as much. There is something else, Gonzalez said gently. We need to make sure you are safe. Men like David, when they're caught, when they're cornered, they can become dangerous. Do you have somewhere you can stay? She is staying with me, I said immediately. Good. And Emily, we'll need you to get a restraining order. We'll help you file, but you cannot go back to that house. You cannot be alone with him. And you cannot warn him that we're coming, understood? Emily looked terrified. But she nodded. Understood. David was arrested 3 days later at our house, technically Emily's house, but she'd already moved out. Detective Gonzalez called me from the scene. He is claiming he is innocent, saying your daughter gave him permission, saying you are lying because you never liked him, standard playbook. What happens now? We've got solid evidence. He'll be charged, arraigned, likely held on bail given his flight risk. Emily will need to file for divorce, and both of you should prepare for him to try to contact you. From jail, through friends, whatever. Don't engage. Everything goes through lawyers and police? She paused. Mr. Walsh, you saved your daughter. You know that, right? If you hadn't caught this, he would have destroyed her completely. Emily stayed with me for 6 months. Those were hard months. She was devastated, embarrassed, broke, grieving a marriage that had never been real. But slowly, something started to shift. She started going to therapy, a specialist in emotional and financial abuse. She joined a support group for survivors of domestic abuse. She started talking to old friends she'd lost touch with during the marriage. And she started getting angry. Good angry. Healthy angry. The kind of anger that fuels change instead of destruction. He made me think I was crazy, she told me one night. We were sitting on the back porch, same porch where I'd pushed her on a swing when she was 5. Every time I questioned him about money, he'd tell me I was being paranoid, that I didn't trust him, that I was the problem. And I believed it. I thought I was the problem. You weren't the problem. I know that now, but Dad, I lost 4 years believing I was. 8 months after David's arrest, Emily got a call from a woman named Rachel. Rachel had seen news coverage of David's arrest. She'd been married to him 15 years ago, before he changed his name before he went to prison the first time. I need to talk to you, Rachel said, because I was you, and I need you to know it gets better. Rachel came over. She and Emily sat at my kitchen table, and Rachel told her story, eerily similar to Emily's. The charm, the gradual control, the financial abuse, the isolation, but also the recovery, the rebuilding, the life she'd created on the other side. I am remarried now, Rachel said, happily, to a man who is kind, honest, who adds to my life instead of taking from it. I have 2 kids. I am a financial planner. Ironic, right? Helping people recover from fraud. I built a whole life after David. A better life. Emily was crying. I don't know how to start over. One day at a time, Rachel said. One decision at a time, and you accept help. From your dad, from therapists, from people like me who've been there. You don't try to do it alone. Rachel and Emily exchanged numbers, started meeting for coffee. Rachel became a mentor, a friend, living proof that Emily could survive this. David's trial was 10 months after his arrest. He took a plea deal. 15 years in prison. Restitution ordered for both Emily and me, though we knew we'd never see most of the money. At the sentencing, the judge allowed victim impact statements. Emily wanted to give one. I was terrified, afraid it would be too hard for her, afraid David would use it to manipulate her one more time. But Emily stood up, walked to the front of that courtroom, and she read a statement that made me cry. You took my money, she said, looking directly at David. You took 4 years of my life. You took my self-esteem, my relationships, my sense of safety. You made me small so you could feel big. You lied to me every single day. David tried to interrupt. The judge shut him down. But here is what you didn't take, Emily continued. You didn't take my capacity to heal. You didn't take my strength. It was there the whole time, buried. But there. You didn't take my future. And you didn't take my ability to love. Real love. Healthy love. The kind you were never capable of giving. She looked at the judge. He'll tell you. He is changed. That he is sorry. That circumstances made him do it. Don't believe him. Men like him don't change until they decide they want to, and even then, it takes years of work he has never done. The judge nodded. Noted, Miss Walsh. Thank you for your courage. Emily walked back to her seat next to me. She was shaking. I took her hand. "I am proud of you," I whispered. "I am proud of me too," she said. 2 years later, Emily is a different person. Not the person she was before David. That person is gone. But someone new, someone stronger. She moved into her own apartment. Small but hers. She rebuilt her credit slowly. She got promoted at work. She reconnected with friends. And she started volunteering with the same domestic violence organization where she'd found her support group. She leads a financial abuse support group now, helping other survivors understand what happened to them and how to rebuild. "I tell them what Rachel told me," Emily explained. "That recovery is possible. That you can build a life on the other side. That one bad relationship doesn't define you." Last month, she told me she is dating someone new. A teacher. Someone kind who makes her laugh, who respects her boundaries. "I am not rushing anything," she said. "And I am being really careful. But Dad, he is so different from David. He actually listens. He supports my independence. He celebrates when good things happen to me instead of feeling threatened by it." "That is what healthy looks like," I said. "Yeah, I am learning that." People ask me sometimes if I regret how it all went down, if I wish I'd found a gentler way to tell Emily the truth, if I feel guilty for the pain it caused her. And here is my answer. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was traumatic. Yes, Emily lost money and time, and the life she thought she was building. But she gained something more valuable. She gained herself back. That conversation. That awful, terrible conversation, where I had to tell my daughter her husband was a criminal. It was the beginning of her freedom. And protecting her was worth her temporary anger. Worth the hard months of recovery, worth all of it. Sometimes love means telling truths people don't want to hear. Sometimes protection means risking the relationship. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to stay silent about danger. Last week, Emily called me from a support group meeting. One of the women she has been mentoring just left her abusive marriage. Emily helped her file the restraining order, connected her with resources, sat with her through the worst of it. "She told me I saved her life," Emily said. "And I realized, Dad, you saved mine. If you hadn't discovered what David was doing, if you hadn't told me, I'd still be there. Still being drained, still being diminished, still believing it was my fault." My voice cracked. "You saved yourself, Em. You are the one who chose to leave, who did the work, who rebuilt." "Yeah. But you gave me the information I needed to make that choice. You risked our relationship to protect me. That is what real love looks like." We were both crying at that point. "I want to tell my story publicly," she said. "I want to go on record, use my real name, talk about what happened. Because there are so many women out there right now living my story, and maybe if they hear it, they'll recognize their own situation. Maybe it'll give them permission to leave." "Are you sure? That is a big step. I am sure David took so much from me. I am not letting him take my voice too. Here is what I learned through all of this. The truth isn't always kind, but it is always necessary. I could have stayed quiet about David. I could have convinced myself it wasn't my place. That Emily was an adult who had to make her own choices. That I shouldn't interfere in her marriage. But silence would have been complicity. Silence would have made me part of the system that was destroying my daughter. So I spoke up. I risked her anger, her rejection, our relationship. And yes, she was angry at first, not at me, but at herself, at the situation, at how completely she'd been fooled. But that anger turned into fuel, fuel for change, fuel for healing, fuel for helping others. The hardest conversations are often the most important ones. The truths that hurt to speak are often the ones that save lives. And love, real love, sometimes looks like risking everything to tell someone what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about the hard truths that lead to healing. But here is what I really need. If you are in a situation where you suspect someone you love is being abused, financially, emotionally, physically, speak up, do the research. Have the hard conversation, it might save their life. And if you are the person being abused right now, hear this. It is not your fault. You are not crazy. You are not imagining it. And there is a way out. I'll put resources in the description. Hotlines, support groups, legal aid services. You don't have to do this alone. Emily wants me to tell you she thought she'd never be happy again. She thought David had destroyed her capacity for trust and joy and love. She was wrong. Recovery is possible. A better life is possible. You just have to take the first step. Thank you for listening. And remember, speaking the truth isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. I'll see you in the next one.